The Inuit hunters of eastern Greenland face a growing and alarming health crisis due to the accumulation of harmful, forever chemicals in their environment and diet. These chemicals, known as PFAS, have reached concentrations in their blood that are 13 times higher than the established risk threshold, posing serious long-term health risks. Unlike many other regions, where exposure is linked to industrial work or contaminated groundwater, the Inuit community's exposure comes directly from their traditional diet of polar bears and ringed seals, animals that accumulate these persistent pollutants through ocean and air currents. This environmental contamination, which will likely persist for another century, places this remote community at one of the highest levels of PFAS exposure in the world. The consequences of this contamination are deeply concerning. PFAS chemicals have been linked to a wide range of health issues, including increased cancer risks, obesity, thyroid dysfunction, liver and kidney disease, high cholesterol, developmental problems in infants, and even reduced vaccine effectiveness. In addition to PFAS, Inuit hunters are also exposed to high levels of mercury and polychlorinated biphenyls, PCBs, which further compromise their immune, reproductive, nervous, and endocrine systems. Despite being banned in the United States for decades, PCBs persist in the environment, binding to sediment and affecting both fish and wildlife. Combined with the existing health risks, these pollutants create a toxic burden that threatens not only individual well-being, but also the survival of an entire way of life. The tragedy of this situation is that the Inuit have traditionally lived in harmony with their environment, relying on hunting and fishing for sustenance. Now, their very means of survival is turning against them. Unlike urban populations, where dietary choices are more flexible, the Inuit have fewer alternatives. Being advised to diversify their diet is not a simple task when access to alternative food sources is limited, and imported foods are often expensive and nutritionally inferior. Furthermore, any shift away from traditional foods could erode cultural identity and self-sufficiency, creating new social and economic challenges. This crisis is not just a local issue. It is a stark reminder of how industrial pollution reaches even the most remote and seemingly untouched corners of the planet. PFAS and other toxic chemicals have been widely used for decades in consumer products, from non-stick cookware to waterproof fabrics, and their environmental impact is now becoming impossible to ignore. Their ability to travel vast distances through air and water currents means that even those who have never used these products directly are suffering the consequences. The fact that a small community in Greenland has some of the highest contamination levels in the world is a shocking testament to how deeply embedded these pollutants have become in global ecosystems. The only real solution lies in stricter regulations on chemical production and widespread efforts to clean up contamination. While reducing exposure by altering diet may offer some temporary relief, it does not address the root cause. Governments and industries must take responsibility for reducing toxic emissions, developing safer alternatives, and investing in solutions to mitigate the damage already done. Without decisive action, the Inuit hunters of Greenland and many other communities around the world will continue to pay the price for decades of environmental neglect.